Hello Harveys! I am so excited about this previous week's topic, making one of your favorite foods. And my favorite food recently has been better than naughtiness cake. It's actually really easy to make. We used Devil's Food Cake Mix, and you just follow the recipe on the box to start, so pretty simple. Here before me is a Devil's Food Cake fresh out of the oven. So at this point it's really simple. You can grab anything out of the kitchen. I like using something like this, a wooden spoon. You can see the base is square and it's pretty wide. And that's all you use to poke holes throughout the cake. So I'm just going to go through. It doesn't have to be too fancy. And you poke holes. And like I said, this cake is fresh out of the oven, so it's actually very hot. The recipe says you can either do it when it's hot or wait till it's cooled. I like to do it when it's hot just because I feel like the cake is a little more malleable and therefore maybe a little more absorbent, and it gives the next part of the cake a little more pizzazz because it sinks in more. Okay, so we're done with that. I'm just going to stick that in the sink. Next we use caramel. It doesn't really matter what kind you use as long as it's kind of cooking caramel topping and it's a nice liquid. You can see it's not stiff at all. And then you get a can of sweetened and condensed milk. And we are going to pour half a can of caramel and the entire can of sweetened condensed milk into the holes on the cake and let it sink in and just be succulently delicious. So here goes nothing. I just like to kind of carefully pour it into the holes directly. The more you get into the holes, obviously the more the cake is going to absorb. See how it just kind of goes in there? Oh man, so delicious. So delicious. And at the end you should see that about halfway up the holes there's just puddles of caramel and sweetened condensed milk, which is a good sign because after it's sat for a while the cake should just be soaked with this delicious stuff. So call that good. Next is a can of sweetened condensed milk. Just gonna flip that lid, pour it in slowly, or not so slowly, it's pretty runny. Delicious. Okay, so that is step number one. So at this point I am taking a thin layer of whipped cream and spreading it evenly over the cake. It looks a little messy right now, but we're just going to make it look like a nice, pretty sort of glaze. Should be really fun. Awesome. Now, you could do frosting, you could do a much thicker layer of whipped cream. I am not a huge fan of frosting, and this cake is so rich that frankly I wouldn't recommend using a lot, but I have seen it with much thicker frosting, and it was still really good. Now that we've used up all of our whipped cream, just like a nice smooth even layer, we are going to put the grand finale on, which happens to be Heath Bits. Oh yeah, it's gonna be awesome. I'm just gonna cut the top here, even application, and then you just sprinkle these puppies in a nice layer all over the top of the cake. And that right there, my friends, is an edible sin. Better than naughtiness cake, and everyone will agree. It is amazing.
Okay, hello Harvey Bloodline. I know I haven't done any videos yet, but since Kara told me what the topic was and that it was making your favorite food, I thought I would join in since this is a topic that is especially near to my heart. Anyway, my favorite food, some of you might have seen me make it before, is a ramen sandwich. And so what you need for this, you need some ramen. I went with beef, but chili or oriental both works well. eggs, a good flat bowl, and a frying pan. So, first thing you do, turn your frying pan on to medium or whatever you use to cook eggs. And butter it. Actually, before I do that, open the ramen, don't crunch it up. And crack 3 eggs into your flat bowl. Good 1. 2. It's all in the wrist. 3. Okay. Then, let me wash my hands real quick.
Graceful.
Then you take your ramen seasoning packet, pour it into your eggs. You probably don't want all of it. I like to do about half. Put about half of it in there. And then stir this up while your pan's still getting hot.
The master at his work.
Just try and get it into a good, even mix. Like just making scrambled eggs or something. Alright, that's good enough. Then what you do is you take your ramen.
This is going to be good.
Set it in there. Set the whole thing in there. Let it get soaked. Flip it over. Let it get good and saturated.
Just like French toast?
Just like French toast. Get good and saturated. Very good. Okay, now I'll see if this is hot enough yet. Not much in there. Butter your pan. Not hot enough yet. Turn it up a little.
How do you know when it's hot enough?
The butter sizzles.
There you go.
And you want your pan good and hot because when you set this on there, you want the layer that touches it to cook instantly and seal. So when you pour the rest on top, it doesn't just drain out through the ramen. You want it to stay in the ramen. So if the bottom seals and cooks, it seals it all in, and then it just sits in the ramen and cooks in there. So that's what you want. Alright, the pan's starting to sizzle. I'm going to plop the ramen in there.
Time to zoom in.
Just take the whole thing, set it on top.
Beautiful.
Then you take the rest and slowly pour it over the top. Let it soak in each one. Try and keep it on top so it fills and soaks into the ramen. That's what you want. Yeah, looking good. Alright, and then once it's saturated, just pour the rest on there, just like that. Okay, it's been cooking for a little while. You can see that it's getting kind of solid. You know it's cooked on the bottom. So what I do now is I flip it. I'm going to get a spatula for this.
Oh, it's going to be intense.
Flip it like it's a giant pancake. And then you cut off the 4 sides so that they can cook too. You have to cover it. You can cover it from the beginning if you want to. It'd probably help it cook faster, but it's not really science. So we'll just let that cook for a little bit longer and then we'll get back to it. Okay, so it's been just a couple of minutes, just long enough. I didn't mention it last time, I put some toast in at the same time as I flipped it and covered it. And so about the time that toast pops up is when we'll be ready to get this, or when it'll be ready. So you can see it now, it's been flipped. It should be cooked and it should be squishy, you see? It's gotten soft from all the juices, yeah, and it's definitely cooked on both sides. Turn that off. Put this in the sink.
Dirty dishes.
See that toast? Yeah, that toast is just about done. There we go. So what you do is you just take it out of there, have it between two pieces of toast, like so. What I like to do is I like to put a piece of like pre-sliced cheese on top of it so that the cheese melts, but we don't have any right now, so you guys can try that.
It's beautiful.
And you can cut the sides off and eat them separate.
Mm-mm-mm.
Ramen seasoning just works well just in eggs in general. And then if you like ketchup, it's really good to dip it in ketchup as you eat it. So there it is, the ramen sandwich. Delicious, nutritious.
Ta-da.
Just don't worry about cholesterol or sodium and you'll be fine.